Good evening. Good evening and welcome. My name is Jane Demner, and on behalf of the Columbia Association, I'd like to welcome you here this evening. I'm really excited about this particular speaker, Randy Cohen. He's the 7th in our speaker series, which is on building community. So our speaker series has ranged from environmental issues to transportation issues to what makes a retail center tick to downtown development. And tonight I think the speaker is right in our sweet spot as we think ahead to incorporating more arts in our revitalized downtown and throughout the community. So first, before we talk about community building, I have some community thanking to do. So please excuse me. I want to first thank Howard Community College for partnering with us on this event, especially Janelle Broderick. Janelle, are you in the house? Janelle is the manager of this wonderful Horowitz Performing and Visual Arts Center, and her team here tonight has made this possible. Also, I would also like to announce and to acknowledge Dean Lash, Valerie Lash. Are you in the house? Valerie, for all your service, particularly your artistic direction, who's the power behind the rep stage. I'd very much like to thank Colleen West. Colleen, are you here? Colleen is Executive Director of the Howard County Arts Council and also a partner in making this event happen. And thank you so much for all you do for the community and the arts. This evening, I was just told that today or this week is International Jazz Day or Week, and we had Elliot Frank, a high schooler, perform for us. So I don't think he's in the house, but give him a round of applause. Elliot is a prize-winning keyboardist and pianist, particularly jazz, just has won some prize at a big competition, and he's the product of our wonderful arts, curriculum in the school system. He's at Wild Lake. I want to recognize Phil Nelson, the Columbia Association president, for all of that, his support and his vision. Also, there are some elected officials here. Ed Coleman with the Columbia Association Board of Directors, and I know that others are on their way. Mary Kay Segedy is not yet here, I don't think. But I welcome all of you in all your positions. And I thank you for coming out tonight very much. So now I would like to get on to the main part of the show, and that's Randy Cohen. So Randy Cohen is the Vice President of Research and Policy at Americans for the Arts, the nation's advocacy organization for the arts. He's an expert in the fields of arts funding, research, policy, and using the arts to address community development issues. He publishes several things that are very important. One is the National Arts Index, which is an annual measure of the health and vitality of the arts. And then 2 economic studies, the Arts and Economic Prosperity, the National Impact Study of Nonprofit Arts Organizations, and something called Creative Industries, an annual mapping of the nation's 900,000 establishments and their employees. He's a sought-after speaker. He's given, he said, speeches in 49 states. So if anybody has relatives or contacts in Mississippi, make sure that this guy gets to the 50th state. And he regularly appears in the media. Randy has, before he worked for the Americans for the Arts, he was a policy specialist at the National Endowment for the Arts. He founded the San Diego Theater for Young Audiences, and has worked previously in medical research for Stanford, as well as the Scripps Clinic and Research Foundation in San Diego. Randy lives with his wife and 2 children in Tacoma Park, Maryland, so he knows our area well. So please, welcome Randy Cohen.
Thank you, Jane. All right. Thank you, Jane, for that kind introduction. And thanks all of you for coming out today. I was glad the weather cleared, so it was nice to come on in dry. And it's just so nice to be in this beautiful facility and this beautiful college. Wow, it's just lovely. So I too am a fellow Marylander, and so it's great to be so close to home to talk about something near and dear to my heart, which is arts and community, and how a healthy arts community is really, it's a cultural catalyst. It creates communities that we want to live in that are healthier socially, educationally, economically, and so that's some of what we're going to talk about today. And so I want to just start by, we're going to kind of get into some of these community benefits of the arts, but I want to remind everybody the fundamental reason why we love the arts. The arts are food for the soul. They inspire us, they delight us, they entertain us. The arts are a fundamental component of a healthy society. And the fact is they've been that way for a long time. And so what you see here actually, this is a hand-carved flute that was found in a cave in Germany about recently, and it was determined to be 25,000 years old. And you see, it's a beautiful piece of work, and actually, somebody got down and actually played it, and it sounds right and everything. But what was interesting is the anthropologists that found this in the paper they were writing about, they were trying to figure out, now, what was the purpose of this flute? And they thought, well, maybe it was to help promote territorial expansion, or maybe it was related to celebrate the hunt, or something to help the fertility ritual, perhaps. And I just kept thinking, maybe they liked the way it sounded, but that never showed up. Anyway, but it's interesting, so when we talk about arts and community, even people who study past societies see a healthy, vibrant arts as part of a healthy community. Now, of course, one of the things, we'll talk today a little bit about is arts and the economy, arts and jobs. Well, if you had your first flute player, well, what was the next industry after that? How about the music critic, right? So, even 25,000 years ago, the arts were spawning new industries. Now, this flute thing really stayed with people, so fast forward about 25,000 years to the 1700s, where we learn in our museums about the shame flute. Now, the shame flute, this little ditty was made out of cast iron, and it was clasped around a person's neck there, and the fingers were shackled to this long tube. And the purpose of the shame flute was to punish bad musicians. So if you got a gig at the Prince's Palace and you stink up the joint, well, everybody, they'd march you around town in the shame flute so everybody could laugh at the bad musician, So it sounds a little barbaric, but hey, they cared about their music back then, right? So anyway, art's been with us a long time, fundamental component of a healthy community. But arts organizations depend on contributed support, and we often have to make the case for why they need those contributions. And so they've got a very pragmatic aspect as well. And so we're going to hit some of these pragmatic thoughts and ideas today also. But even this whole pragmatic notion of the arts, improving our quality of life, improving our economy and education and healthcare, which we'll hit. But even the pragmatic piece isn't that new. And what you see here actually is a lot of you will recognize this painting. That's George Washington at Valley Forge. And it was a cold winter siege there, right? And General Washington was trying to figure out, boy, how do I motivate these guys? We're fighting this army that's got big thick coats and wool and lots to eat and plenty of ammo, and how do I mobilize this hungry, freezing army? And so you know what he did? He turned to the arts. He ordered that the play Cato be performed, because he thought theater and art was the best way to inspire his army about, this is what we're aspiring to, folks. Don't get out there tomorrow because I told you to. This is the new republic that we're fighting for. And he felt the arts were the best way to do that. Now, what's interesting is he actually gave that order despite a congressional resolution at the time that said plays were detrimental to Republican virtue. So, even General Washington was up against it back then. So, anyway, arts, fundamental component of our communities and a healthy society for a long, long time. Now, I want to talk, one of those pragmatic aspects about the arts is an economic one. And just sort of start, that with a story. So not long ago, it was date night with my wife, and actually the story starts 2 weeks before date night. Now you would think, going to the arts, with Americans for the Arts on my business card, I'm out at the arts all the time. I have as much trouble getting out the door as the next guy. But anyway, so, we decided it was going to be an arts event. So we got online, got on the computer, and, Jenny was sort of tipping towards the dance thing. I was thinking about a theater event, and, we looked at some different websites, and we settled on a theater event and pulled out the credit card, punch in some numbers, printed out our tickets. Gotta love the e-commerce. So now, fast forward a couple weeks, it's date night, and we actually started the evening out and, kind of got dressed up a little bit. And on our way out to the theater, we went and we stopped and had dinner. Is that something we do a lot, before we go out to the theater? And so we went to a nice restaurant and spent about $60 and had a nice meal. And then from there, was back in the car and off to the theater. And we parked in a garage, and it was $10. So, peeled off my 10, got my little ticket, and then we went into the theater itself. And we still had a little bit of time, so we shared a glass of wine. And then walking into the auditorium, we stopped, hit the facilities real quick. And then we actually got into the theater, and we sat down and, under the chandeliers. And, we read the program about the show we were about to see. And now, so stop right there a second, because it's still only 5 minutes till 8 o'clock. Right? The show hasn't even started. But think of all the industries that have already been affected because of this arts event. Well, it started 2 weeks before, right? When we got online and, we were checking out the different kinds of arts organizations. Well, arts organizations employ computer programmers, and they employ web designers. And we actually bought our tickets online. And so, you got finance people and banking people. And now it's, so then fast forward to date night, and actually, she got me a new necktie, and so there was a little bit of retail spending involved there. And then we jumped in the car, and we went and we had a nice meal. We spent $60. And it was, it's one of those farm to fork kind of places, right? And so everything grown within about 50 miles. And, so some of that $60, that's going to the local producers and growers. And the waiter who waited on us is getting some of that money. And how about the owner of the restaurant? Bringing home some of those $60 in entrepreneurial income. And so, lots of people affected just by that. Then it was, back in the car, and, we didn't have to drive too far, but, with gas scratching $4 a gallon, you don't have to drive very far before that starts to add up. And we parked in the parking garage, $10. It's a municipally owned garage, so that $10 is going to the city, and then into the theater itself. And, we had a glass of wine, all right, so, there's all the catering involved in that, and made our way into the auditorium, and, remember we made the little pit stop there. Look, doesn't matter if it's your house or this, beautiful theater, we all need a good plumber, right? So, the trades are getting some benefit from this, this evening out. And then we went and we sat down in the auditorium, and, the lighting and the chandeliers. And I used to run a theater, and I can tell you, those aren't interns that change those light bulbs up there. It takes electricians to get up and keep these places going. And how about the programs? Every time we go to an arts event, we get programs and papers. So you got designers and printers involved. And so all of these industries are affected just as a result of this one night out. Now 8 o'clock comes, the curtain goes up, and that's when a lot of people start to think, oh, well, okay, the play's going. I guess those actors are getting paid, and the director is, probably getting some income from that as well. So lots of industries affected every time we go to see the arts. And this happens, communities across the country and just, right here in town with all the great arts organizations that we have. And so we set out to try and quantify and capture that economic benefit as a result of the arts, these arts events. So what we did is we did this Arts and Economic Prosperity study. It's a national research study looking at the economic impact of nonprofit arts and culture organizations and their audiences. And so what we did is we looked at 182 communities across the country, and you can see there we're in all 50 states, plus the District of Columbia. We looked at small communities, 1,500 people, all the way to 4 million. And we, again, we looked at our nonprofit theaters, museums, arts education organizations. We didn't look at, the motion picture industry or the, individual artists. All an important part of our cultural ecology, but just not part of this study. And so what did we find out? Well, working with our team of economists, we found out nationally the arts are a $135 billion industry in the United States. $135 billion of economic activity, just nonprofit arts and culture industry. Spending by those organizations and their audiences. Now let me kind of break that down a little bit, because you know what we found? Arts organizations themselves spend $61 billion a year. Now, that right there, the arts organizations are businesses. And that's a myth buster for a lot of people. We don't think about the arts as businesses. We love them because, they create the communities that we want to live in. We love attending them. They enrich us. But the fact is, they're businesses. They employ people locally. They purchase goods and services in the community. Arts organizations are good business citizens. Now, that spending then leverages an additional $74 billion in audience spending. And so that's how we come up with that economic impact, $135 billion of economic activity. So what does that mean in terms of jobs and government revenue in our community? That supports 4.1 million jobs in the United States. Now, something about arts jobs. Arts jobs are necessarily local jobs. These, we hear a lot about jobs and employment, and industries being shipped overseas. That's not the arts. Because, if we go to the symphony and we see a first violinist and 99 Macintosh computers, backing her up, we're not going to be happy, right? We want all the musicians up there. And so it's a very local labor industry. And so jobs, local. The big takeaway, across this country, art's not just food for the soul, but putting food on the table for 4 million households in this country. What's another measure that we look at? Well, we also look at government revenue. In communities across the country, you add it all up, federal, state, local government revenue, $22.3 billion. Now, what's interesting is government outlay for the arts, if you add it all up, federal, state, local, it's about $5 billion. So government is getting a good return on that investment. So, arts are an industry. Now, like every industry, any industry, anytime I can give you a $5 bill and our economists can chase you down and, see what you do with that and what the economic impact of that is. But very few industries generate the event-related spending that the arts do. And so, kind of millions, billions. All right, let's bring this down to the human unit here. We did, as part of this study, 152,000 audience intercept surveys, where we asked folks across the country, how much should you spend related to this arts event that you're attending? And what we found is that the typical attendee spends $24.60 per person per event beyond the cost of admission. So that doesn't include the ticket price. And you can see how this breaks down, and about half of this is on food and souvenir gifts. There's my necktie for my wife, and some ground transportation. So you might be looking at lodging now, thinking, wow, can you still get a room for $3.51? And would you want to if you could? No, you wouldn't. But that's only because there's a small percentage of arts attendees have an overnight expense. So, but then, just to make things a little more interesting, we asked each of those 152,000 people for their zip code. Because we want to find out, do they live in the county in which the arts event took place? So are they local? Or are they from outside the county? Are they non-local? Nationally, on average, 32%, about 1 out of 3 attendees come from outside the county to attend that arts event. So people are willing to travel for the arts. So what does that look like then? Of course, the question is, how does their spending differ? Well, non-local attendees, just shy of $40, right? And that's, you'd expect more on transportation, more on food. So when I look at a lot of the, the great cultural amenities we have right here in the community, that is a draw. Arts and culture is a draw for folks. Now, we asked those non-local attendees another question. So we asked them, how much did you spend? Where are you from? And then the last one was really quite simply, why are you here? Are you here visiting family? Are you here on business? 59% of those non-local attendees said, we came specifically for this arts event. So you can really start to see the pulling power that the arts have. Then we asked their local counterparts, if this arts event weren't taking place, would you have stayed home, done something else? 42% said, oh, we would have just traveled to a different community to attend a similar kind of arts event. And arts that's a discretionary expenditure, right? So people are going to spend it wherever they want. And so this is what we get. We not only draw people to the community and their dollars, with the arts, but we keep our neighbors right here in their hard-won discretionary spending right in the community. So economic benefits of a culturally vibrant community. Everyone get that? Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah, all right, I'm seeing heads nod. All right, so we'll start to, see what this looks like. So this is a really important story when we talk about, some of the value of the arts. The arts provide both cultural and economic benefits to a community. Now, innovation. All right, so what you see up here is your basic World War II tank, right? Where's he going with this? Or is it? This actually is an inflatable tank. And you can see this right here. This tank actually is a product of the 23rd Special Troops Unit from World War II. And the 23rd was assembled for the purpose of creating battlefield diversions to confound the enemy. And so the military was trying to think, well, how can we get that extra edge? And so even in the World War II battlefields, they found a role for creativity and innovation. And so, of course, where did they go to find the people of the 23rd? They went to art schools. They got actors and designers. And they, had playwrights writing phony, radio transmission scripts. And you can see the inflatable tanks and the inflatable airplanes. And one of the U.S. generals in one of the Rhine War battles credits the 23rd with saving 10,000 American lives because it peeled off a huge portion of the German army who went to chase down the inflatable tanks and airplanes. So Art Kane, Ellsworth Kelly, fashion designer Bill Blass, so many of our World War II artists, all members of the 23rd. Interestingly, kept top secret for 50 years. Military never came clean on this till the mid-1990s. So, when we think about creativity and innovation, we don't often think about it on the military and in the battlefield. But the fact is, in this global economy, innovation is really what's going to help us prosper. And creativity is what fuels that. And so do the arts have a role there? Well, yeah, absolutely. So what are some of the benefits that we see with arts companies and arts businesses? You heard Jane mention our creative industries research study. So, after we did the economic impact study, everybody said, oh, wow, nonprofit arts organizations, they're an industry, they support jobs. Yeah, we get it. But what about the rest of the businesses in our community? And so we developed a study called Creative Industries, Business and Employment in the Arts. And then in this study, we look at both nonprofit theaters, museums, ballet companies, but also for-profit, film, architecture, design, publishing, businesses involved in the creation or the distribution of the arts. And I use as my data source Dun & Bradstreet. And if you're familiar or not, with Dun & Bradstreet, they track 21.5 million active U.S. companies in this country. It's the most comprehensive and trusted source for business in the United States. And they code all those businesses so you know exactly what they do. Well, we pulled out the arts businesses, and we found nationally 905,000 of the nation's business establishments are arts-centric businesses. But then I can actually drill down to even right here in a county level. Right here in Howard County, 986 businesses that employ just over 3,000 people. And you can see each of these dots represent an arts-centric business. And, this is a list. We've just got a list of businesses and how many people are on the payroll there. Nationally, 4.4% of all companies are arts businesses. Right here in the county, it's a little over 4.3%. So what we see, Howard County, right about at the national average in terms of share of arts businesses as a percentage of all businesses. Does that make sense, everyone? All right. Now, let me say also, again, we take a very conservative approach. These are only arts businesses. They don't involve medical research or computer programming, all very creative, just not part of the arts ecology. Actually, a couple of years ago, I was presenting these data to some economists, and one of them asked me, what about morticians? Did you include morticians? I thought, no, but bring it. Maybe I'm missing something. And I said, well, aren't morticians actually involved in the preservation of the body and actually using makeup and lighting and costuming? He never looked so good when he was alive, that kind of thing. So, no, you can be confident there are no morticians as part of the data here. But so arts-centric businesses. And so communities that, see themselves and want to know, how do we stack up in terms of creativity and innovation? These are the numbers they use. How do we compare? So good, strong numbers right here in the county. Now, moving ahead to how the arts help fuel this creativity and innovation. Businesses these days, business leaders are increasingly seeing the importance of a creative workforce. And so we work with organizations like the Conference Board, who published this report that's behind me. The Conference Board, they're the national organization for the Fortune 1000 companies in this country. They give you the leading index of economic indicators, the Consumer Confidence Index. And what their research shows is that in surveys of business leaders, creativity has soared to the top 5 applied skills being sought by business leaders. In fact, it's soared so high it's leapfrogged the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. But I think, as researchers, we talk about this. Well, of course, you got to be able to read, write, and do math. But if you can't apply some creativity to your technological skills or your engineering skills, if you just know the base, just the rudiments, those are the jobs that are being automated or being sent overseas. But if you can apply creativity to your science, technology, engineering, well, that's when we optimize existing products or create whole new markets. 10 years ago, who knew we all needed an iPad? But, sure enough, I'm sure half of the room had one if we all raised hands. So that's the application of creativity. 72% of business leaders say creativity is of high importance in hiring. 85% of those folks say we can't find the people we're looking for. So we then ask the business leaders, well, what are your indicators of creativity? How do you know if you got one on the line? I mean, there's no typing test for creativity, right? So study of the arts, especially while in college, or starting your own company, starting your own business, the biggest indicators of creativity. So everybody gets creativity fuels innovation. Now we're starting to see how a better understanding, appreciation of how the arts and the arts in a community fuel creativity. Now, we gave them actually a number of options, how do you define creativity? And actually, 27% of the respondents checked the box. We assess creativity based on the candidate's appearance during the interview. So I was thankful for anonymous surveys because I would have never had the guts to check that box. But, I'm wearing my cool socks today, so if anyone's thinking they need a new innovation officer, I might be ready to make the move here. So anyway, importance of creativity in the workforce. And Here's another phenomenon that we're seeing in the business world these days, and this is where it all starts to come together, and we see some of the real catalyzing benefits of the arts to our community. Workers in the new economy are behaving very differently than in past generations. That is, they're picking the communities that they want to live in, moving there, and then figuring they'll find work. It's a domestic phenomenon, it's an international phenomenon, and really the idea is, look, if I can work for Google, I can work for oil, I can work for big pharma, I can work for finance, I can take these skills and go anywhere I want and find work. And again, this is happening all over. And in surveys, again and again, what are these folks looking for? Always up towards the top of the list, creative, culturally vibrant communities. They want to live in cool places, right? Who doesn't? So when we start to see, have these creative communities, these arts-rich communities, everything from, the Merriweather, to the symphony and to the theater, all these cultural assets, that's building the creative community that's starting to attract this workforce. And if that's where the workers are these days, well, then the businesses follow. Because these days, the businesses can go anywhere. All you need is an electrical outlet room for the satellite dish, you're good to go. You can go to Colombia, you can go to Ireland. You're going to go where you can find the skilled workforce. So really phenomenal and rapid change in evolution. And in fact, I was just down in Texas last month, and Governor Perry now openly concedes that they lost the Boeing's relocation to Chicago because they couldn't compete artistically, culturally. Chicago had, the better arts and culture. So, we're really starting to see that, and even with our big companies and their relocations. I think one of the great conclusions in this report, this Ready to Innovate report, and again, that's online. Actually, everything's online. You can find all of this for free. It says clearly, it's clear that the arts, music, creative, writing, drawing, dance, provide skills sought by employers, of the third millennium. So arts, economic prosperity, economic catalysts, are really a core. Not just building a creative community, but attracting our skilled, educated workers. So, everyone with me on that so far? Makes sense? All right. Well, so how are some communities what are some communities doing to make themselves creative? And I've had just a great day today learning about the plans for the Inner Arbor and all the development that's going on here. And I got to tell you, it's really exciting. I think there's just phenomenal things happening. So congratulations to everybody. I think that'll really be great. And I am somebody. Let me tell you, I come to concerts here, from time to time. Honestly, I will confess. Unlike the story I told earlier, kind of drive, I park, I do my walk, I sit in, I enjoy the concert, I walk back to the car, and we've driven home. But you know what? With some of the plans and connecting to kind of a re-energized, vitalized downtown, more restaurants, more shops, more of a pedestrian and open space and walking opportunity. This could easily, and I have no problem turning that into a half-day event. Coming early, enjoying the outdoors, going to the restaurants, staying for the concert. So I think all of the plans that, are really headed in the right direction. Other things, obviously that's a big endeavor, but everybody is really competing to attract, this workforce, to improve our quality of life. And so I was up in Seattle recently. Now Seattle is they're trying to position themselves as like we're a total music city. If you love music, you'll love Seattle. And so they've got something called the Music on Hold program. And basically, when you call the city of Seattle, you go, "Hi, city of Seattle, please hold." And while you're on hold, you're listening to Seattle musicians. Only Seattle musicians. And they change it every quarter. And it's become so popular now that the mayor actually does the voiceovers. "Hi, this is Mayor McGinn. You're listening to Seattle Music on Hold. Here's the website. You can go buy the music." They change the music every quarter. Now, they already spent millions of dollars on the phone system, right? This is just a coordinator coordinating the music opportunities. And again, a real simple way to start to build your brand as a music city. I was in Kansas not long ago, and what you're actually looking here, this looks like a giant bookshelf. This actually is a 3-story parking garage. Now, they built a new public library, and then next to it sort of came the requisite, 3-story parking garage. They thought, well, what can we do with that to make it more interesting? And so the library, and I realize I'm in a community of library fantastic central, but I didn't see this on the parking garage, so all right, so maybe we got room to grow there. But they did a big community process. What was some of your favorite books growing up? What was your most influential book? And they came up with a list, and then they employed artists to create what are essentially 3-story tall Mylar screens affixed to the side of the library parking lot. And it's fantastic. It's become this real community attraction. And, when I was there, now the people who come into town for business are like, okay, doing business. Listen, on the way to the airport, can we stop and take a look at the parking garage? Now, everybody is trying to stem the brain drain and turn that into a brain gain, right? And Boise, have you been to Boise? It's a very remote city. You fly into Boise, and it's the most remote big city in the lower 48. And honestly, you're flying, you're descending, and all you see are these mountains. I'm like, I hope this pilot, what are we doing here? And then last second you turn, you land in the valley, and there you are. And it's a really nice community. They got the big university there with the blue football field. But you know what? The day after graduation, everybody's picking up, jumping on a plane, and they're headed for Austin, Seattle, San Francisco. And so how do we keep these people here? And so, they're trying to get in with some of the arts and creativity. And so they have begun doing artistic wrapping of the traffic signal boxes. In intersections, you got sort of those green traffic signal boxes, right? It's kind of a garish, thing there. But they are employing artists. They pay them, it costs $2,500. It pays the artist. And then, it's an original painting or drawing or even a mosaic. And then they go through this process to convert it to a vinyl wrap. And they've wrapped about 20 of these traffic signal boxes. The big thing in Boise now with the public, get your picture next to all the traffic signal boxes. And this, again, it's not really that expensive, but it's just this really cool thing the community's doing, and everybody's swelling with pride on that one. I was in upstate New York where I learned about one of the new big public safety hazards now. People are stealing manhole covers and selling them for scrap metal. All right, so now picture yourself, as mayor or something like that. The phone call that comes in the middle of the night. Oh, old lady fell in the manhole, we can't get her out. We're trying to figure out, this is a big public safety issue. So they're going back to the foundry, they're recasting these manhole covers, so they've got little locks on it. Well, they're taking the opportunity to have artists design the tops of these manholes. And so some are really colorful, some have sort of the shape and, history and, character of the community. And they're just all over the place. And people are like, this is really cool. Actually, I think I've got, let's see. Oh, all right. So what you're looking at here is the Phoenix Dump. All right, so the dump, right? I've talked about these street amenities. Well, about 25 years ago, it was time to build a new 27th Avenue solid waste treatment facility, the dump, in Phoenix. And they thought, well, how can we make this a better place for our workers? And, how can we better connect the dump to the people in the community? And it was sort of environmental, right? And connecting us to our solid waste and everything. And so what did they do? They brought in a team of artists. And they really were involved in it from soup to nuts the whole way through. Short story, today the Phoenix Dump, 25,000 people a year go to the dump to see the rotating art exhibits. And there's in fact, we did our annual convention there a couple of years ago, and we did our closing event here. It was called Dance at the Dump. So it was a big hit, true story. So as we think about, identifying ourselves as a creative community, if you're the city that's boasting about your manhole covers, your dump, your library parking garage, your traffic signal boxes, you can really boast about yourself as a creative kind of community. So not everything even needs to cost and be really expensive, you know. So every city, every municipality has got advisory committees and commissions, all the ways we as, you know, citizens engage and get involved in government. So I was asked the question, is there artists and arts organization representation on each of those? Because it's really sometimes just about making good decisions, better decisions. You know, and that's the power of the arts. You know, that's what the arts really bring to our communities. So, you know, so when we talk about creativity and innovation, attracting a workforce, you know, it can work at a lot of levels and a lot of depths. And this is what attracts artists to, you know, come and be and live in our communities. And, you know, and it really just builds a whole critical mass. So that's, you know, vitality, creating communities. Let me just talk about a couple other things briefly. Some of the other benefits we get with a rich, culturally vibrant community. Education, big issue, right? This is what we're worried about these days. How well are our kids performing academically? Well, number one, I'll tell you this, research. If you look, the College Board, they administer the SAT. Students with 4 years of music or art in high school average 100 points better on their SAT test than students with just a half year. 100 points better. And you know, when we talk about kind of connecting the arts to education, boy, SAT tests, good, you know, means a good college, which means a good job, which means, you know, grandkids by the fireside, right? I mean, you can play out the whole trajectory. And so, you know, it's a very powerful finding for a lot of people. Now, we're not really sure who all those students are, and so let me tell you about another study done by a UCLA researcher, James Catterall. And what Dr. Catterall did is he looked at nationally representative data on 25,000 students in 1,000 schools across the country. And he divided those students into 4 quartiles based on their level of arts involvement. So, you know, practices violin 3 hours a day, and down here, you know, goes to the museum once a year, something like that. And then he compared their academic performance. He found the arts-involved students have better grade point averages, better standardized test scores, lower dropout rates, even better attitudes about community service. You know, we think a lot about community engagement with young folks. And so, really compelling findings. But then he thought, well, he anticipated that question, aren't these students are probably from better educated, more affluent families, or, you know, something like that. So he went back to his base and studied just the lowest socioeconomic quartile. So basically, low-income communities, Title I schools. And he did the same analysis and found not only did the results hold, but there was an even greater disparity between the arts involved and the non-arts involved kids. Suggesting then to education researchers, wow, you know, the arts actually may help kids who got a late start catch up or level the playing field, in education. So very powerful research. It's been, and he's actually studied these young people over time, over 10 years. His initial cohort's now in their 20s. And he went back and he looked at the arts, and looked at the students he could find. He found that the arts-involved students more likely to have finished college, more likely to be to have a career-oriented job. And everything. So even these students into their adult lives are showing benefits of an education rich in the arts. Now, you know, what's interesting, though, is, you know, we talk about these benefits in low-income and Title I schools. Every 10 years, the federal government, you know, does a little temperature check on arts education, and we've seen actually a fairly steady decrease nationally. But in that low-income category, a huge drop-off, up to perhaps even a 40% drop-off in just the last decade. Now, isn't that amazing? The cohort that can benefit the most, you know, according to the research, are the ones who are losing it the fastest. So I think we've got a real equity issue, you know, that we need to look at nationally. And so, you know, important numbers, but the important thing to remember is keeping our young people involved in the arts. The research is clear, they're performing better academically. let me hit another one here real quick as we sort of get to the end. We'll have some time for Q&A and we can get back to some of this. But just want to sort of throw the net out widely. Arts and healthcare, right? Healthcare, it's this big issue. It's this, $2.5 trillion problem. We're trying to figure out what to do with it. Just, to give you an idea, nationally, healthcare has gone from 6 to 17% of the nation's GDP in just the last 30 years. So it's just grown to be this large portion of the economy. Now, I actually, you heard from my introduction with Jane, I actually used to work in medical research. I worked at Stanford University and Scripps Clinic and Research Foundation in La Jolla, California. When I was at Scripps, every Tuesday at 3 o'clock, we had live chamber music in the lobby. And, at first I thought, oh, wow, this is really cool, and it's a nice amenity, for the patients and everything. But what I started to notice is patients who I saw clinically in the room, lethargic, depressed, low energy, really showed physical transformation in the presence of the live music. You could see it. The eyes got less cloudy, the posture got better, greater awareness and engagement with the environment around them. It was amazing. I used to think, it's like they got a shot of something. It's like they got a shot of the arts. It sounds so hokey, but it turns out, that there's this growing body of research that shows when the arts are part of our healthcare experience, we have shorter hospital stays, take less medication, have less depression, and have fewer doctor visits. Now, let me give you an example of what one of those look like. So, Tallahassee, Florida, dealing with the issue of the Children's Hospital there of pediatric CAT scans, right? So you got this really, this actually it kind of looks like it's a huge machine, and these, little kids and stuff. So it's a really complicated procedure. Usually you have to do a lot of retests, which is expensive. And so these kids are sedated, to relax, or even sometimes with a general anesthetic, just knock them out, and that means a night in the hospital. Well, they thought, can we do any better than this? So they tried a music intervention. They give the kids a little light something to relax, but then an hour before the procedure, they brought in a guitarist or a harpist to sit with the child, to talk, to play music. That relaxed the child enough, the patient's family enough, to work to the tune of a 98% procedural success rate, because you got to get the picture, and saved $567 per procedure on anesthesiology time, nursing hours, medicine. How great is this, right? Our kids are getting, a lot less medication. The tests are working more effectively. Providing opportunities for musicians, in our communities. Interestingly, about half the nation's hospitals now have some kind of arts programs, visual or performing arts, or bedside carts, that type of thing. So we're seeing, a growing recognition of this. And, you look back at the Greeks, the god Apollo was actually the god of music and healing. So you talk about a big portfolio. This guy had it, right? But, so it's not even really a new, it's not even a new idea. But one more way that, the arts can be a catalyst to a healthier community. So to wrap up here, what you're actually looking at is a picture from just about 100 years ago, 1912. And this was in Paris at the Louvre. And this is where the Mona Lisa was hanging before it was stolen in 1912. It took them 2 years to get the Mona Lisa back. In the 2 years that the Mona Lisa was gone, more people went to see where it had hung. Yeah, you know where this is going. Yeah, more people went to see where it had been hanging than went and saw the painting itself in the previous 12 years. The arts are such a fundamental part of our communities and of our society, it's really easy to take them for granted. Again, Howard County, Columbia especially, it's great arts community, and I've met so many of you in so many arts organizations, but we've all got a job to do, and we're actually very fortunate. Howard County is increasing its support for the arts, and we got Teresa here with the State Arts Agency. I was just looking at her. There she is. Right, so we've got our State Arts Agency director here. A $2 million increase in state funding. Maryland is the minority of states in this country where the arts are on the increase. And so we're over $15 million a year in this state. And so tremendous story. But you know what? We've got to remind folks of the benefits that come with the arts, and we can't take it for granted. So, every time you go and have that great arts experience, remember it when it's, budget and appropriation time, make your voice heard, let people know that, you value the arts, they improve your quality of life. Going all the way back to the caveman days, they've been doing this, and they improve our communities socially, educationally, and economically. So I'll stop there. I'll just say, I want to thank everybody for everything they do to, create the arts, to support the arts, and and to be here, you're even supporting the arts as well. It's important, and you're important for doing it. Thank you.